Hello, welcome back to Digital Garden 2025. I'm here with Ruyhei Nagase, the co-CEO of CyrusOne KEP, new joint venture that's coming to Japan recently. So, Ruyhei, how's this event been for you so far, Digital Garden?
Yes, so Digital Garden, the first time holding this event, but it has been a great event so far. All the professionals around the industry, not just the data center operators, but people related to the building and really driving the infrastructure in Japan all come together. So it's a great event.
It's been a really good 2 days. We're just drawing to a close here, but so data centers are kind of like something a little bit new for you in your career. Tell us about the kind of how that JV with CyrusOne came together from your role at KEP.
Yeah. So I am from the KEPCO side of the business. So at KEPCO, before entering into this joint venture, we were looking at the utility business. So KEPCO, Kansai Electric Power, is one of the largest utilities in Japan. And we, of course, expertise in utility business, power business, but we also have a very strong core foundation of business in real estate and also telecoms network. We have a very strong fiber companies in the Kansai region. So we were looking at the market, trying to see what would make sense for us to figure out the growth in the market, where the market is actually growing and where we can leverage all our strengths around providing power, large-scale power, providing real estate, and providing critical telecom network. And all this comes together as a growing market is the hyperscale data center business. So we look at that and try to see what makes sense most. But when you look at these data center opportunities, it probably makes sense not to pursue this business as KEPCO on its own alone, but to try to find a partner who can really leverage and bring in the expertise that we need from a global point of view. And at that time, CyrusOne was looking for an entrance into an Asian market, and I think it really just made sense. It was the right time for KEPCO to find a global partner and for CyrusOne to find someone who can help out in the Japan local market. And that's kind of how we came together.
Got it. We've heard a lot at this event, I think, about some of the challenges or the bottlenecks that the Japan market's facing. And ironically, they're around kind of one of its strengths, which is the grid issues that we're seeing in Tokyo and Osaka. Very stable grid, but there's definitely some constraints there. So as you guys are working with CyrusOne KEPCO, as you guys are kind of like planning where you're going to be deploying in Japan, how does that factor into the decision making? And are there any ways that you can overcome some of those bottlenecks?
Yes. So the power timeline issue. So CyrusOne KEP as a data center operator, we look at the right locations, we look at the connectivity to power, but as you mentioned, the timeline to power and the connection to power is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing in the market today. This comes from several reasons. One is that the data center operators are planning the business in around 4 years timeline from the start of design to completion of construction, whereas today the grid takes somewhere around maybe 5 to 10 years in order to upgrade and provide large scale of power. So there is a mismatch there. I also note that there is a mismatch around the end user timelines, where the business planning for the people who actually use and consume these data centers, they plan their business in 1 or 2 years span. So there's some misalignment there as well. So looking at all of that, the investment is actually risk, and we actually need to figure out a way not to have a data center completed and just sit there waiting for power. I think one of the things that Japan has been doing quite well recently is for the regional grid companies to start an approach called the welcome zone maps. So what this does is the regional grid actually discloses where the power is available. So you can actually look into it and see where you can find power faster and easier. And I think this has been a great approach, and it has helped our data center operators figure out where to make the right investments into. So this has been helpful. But I do want to also flag the fact that power being one critical factor of finding the right location for data centers, network is also the other core component. And unfortunately in Japan, it's often the case that where power is available, there is limited network accessibility. So we still need to figure out a solution there.
Yeah, and again, that's despite the fact that Japan's been very like forward-thinking, or not forward, like building fiber from like for a very long time now, right? I think isn't it like 99% of the population has access to fiber connectivity. But then, yeah, it's like finding those sweet spots, I guess. It's difficult.
So from a fiber network perspective, I think one of the issues is, of course, latency. So the actual amount and the distance of fiber that needs to be transacted. This matters a lot for these critical infrastructure that needs to operate under low latency. I think that's one factor. The other factor is that if you mentioned 99.8 or 99.9% of coverage of fiber, that's true. But if you try to bring 2, 3, or even 4 diverse routes into a data center of fiber, it's actually difficult to find out those places where you can actually have a fiber route that does not really cross each other.
Right.
So those has been some of the challenges. If you have a big river in front of you, having a crossing point, then all of those fiber routes just come together.
Yeah, so you need to build like a lot of fiber, a lot of crossings around the river. That makes sense. Why is that? Is that a problem that you think is like unique to Japan, or why are we having that issue with the struggle to get that resiliency when it comes to connectivity?
I mean, I think we kind of share this issue worldwide. It's not just a Japan-specific issue. And I think there are ways to overcome. Infrastructure developments are made into the network infrastructure as well. I think the more focus is currently on the power side of things. And typically in Japan, if you have maybe 3 or 4 years, it's more easier to figure out the right network routes. Whereas power, as I mentioned, takes nearly 5 to 10 years.
Got it.
Yeah,
that makes sense. What's the kind of when you working with this kind of like relatively new data center business? What's kind of like top of your to-do list for the next year or so as co-CEO?
Yeah, so we've started to develop on our first project. We've announced our OSK1 project to start construction very soon. And we're working on that, and we are trying to figure out what new pipelines we can develop as the industry really grows. And we are seeing in Japan that the demand is just significantly and so rapidly growing that the supply is not there yet.
And that demand's coming from hyperscaler, like kind of cloud players, or?
Yes, mainly I think the cloud players. And as we see the global trend in AI workloads, we haven't seen that landed in Japan yet. But hopefully that would connect into Japan. And I think finding the right data center infrastructure to cater for those demand and workloads is going to be
the Osaka
critical.
site will be able to support AI workloads, right? Like those higher rack densities, or
yes, AI and cloud, hopefully, yes.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Do you think that in terms of obviously you picked Osaka for the first location, do you think Osaka and Tokyo are going to continue to be the big hubs within Japan? Going forward, because we've heard at this conference a lot about the potential for moving into more remote areas where it's easier to find the power, but then you're not as close to the big population centers and the businesses, and it's a bit of a risk reward. So how do you guys see that kind of?
Yeah. So in the near term, I do think that the Tokyo and Osaka is still going to be the hub locations for data centers. I think it all depends on what kind of usages these data centers are actually looking at. If we are looking at like conventional cloud data centers, as I mentioned, the latency in order to connect into these services are going to be really critical. So in that sense, those kind of workloads will probably stay close to these major hub metros, which are Tokyo and Osaka today. If we look at new demands such as AI training kind of workloads, then I think there is a big possibility that those kind of data centers can move to a remote location in Japan.
Got it. That's definitely one to keep an eye on. Ray, thank you so much for chatting with us. Really appreciate you taking the time. And check out techcapital.com for more news, views, and industry insights.